Hey guys, Damian Erskine here. I was asked to do a little video on modes for Bass Players United. And seeing as how there's already a few fantastic videos on modes on the site as well as around the web, I thought I'd do something a little bit different and just talk about my approach. Now first I would like to say that I think it's very important that everybody learn all of their major scale modes and melodic minor modes, ideally. You want to have that kind of information just second nature. You don't need to think about it. You want the patterns under your fingers. You want to know the sounds of the different scales. And then once you have all of that in there, you can just use that knowledge. But you don't. I don't like playing scalarly. You know, thinking of this scale over this and this scale over that. I prefer to play more to exactly what the music sounds like and what the chords are telling me. My approach has always been to look at a piece of music. Right now I have Orbits by Wayne Shorter up on the screen there. And I let each chord symbol tell me what scale I should be playing over that chord. Now I also do a lot of work, and you'll see some of my other videos where I talk about voice leading and working with chords, so I can teach myself and explore the interrelationships of the chords. Because you don't want to sound like you're jumping from one scale to the next throughout a tune. You know, every time you're jumping to a new chord, we jump to a new root, and you don't want to do that. So you want to get away from being so root oriented, and you want to get away from treating each chord as a separate entity. And I have other videos on that. But that said, I use the chords as my guide, the chord symbols. And then, you know, through exploration and experimentation and time, having spent working with this stuff, sometimes I'll change things in my own little way because I know I like this sound a little bit better over that type of a chord. Or I may react to the band. They may start to go in a different direction with a change, and I'll try and follow that if I can hear it. But let me get to the crux of what I wanted to talk about today, which is looking at a chord and determining what notes that chord is telling you are available to you. So I'm going to go through this assuming you have a basic knowledge of all chord types. Major, just like the major scale, 1, 3, 5, 7. Dominant, flat to 7, minor, flat to 7 and the third, half diminished or minor 7, flat 5, exactly what it says, minor scale with a flat 5, and so on. So let's use this tune to go through and decipher what notes are available to us for each chord. And keep in mind that really all notes are available to us in one respect. I had a great teacher who always said there's no such thing as a bad note, just a bad resolution. And what he meant by that was any note will work if you give it a context. If you just hit a weird note and then go, you know, it's going to sound like a bad note. But you can pick any note that shouldn't work against a chord and through phrasing and melodicism make it sound great. So it's all about musicality. There are no hard and fast rules here. But let's take a look at this as an example and as an exercise. So first we have that C7. So obviously that could easily be Mixolydian mode. Just major with a flat 7. And that's probably essentially what I play over that chord. Next we have a dominant chord with the flat 9. So I play exactly that, Mixolydian with the flat 9, which is the second. You can always take any number above 7. You can subtract 7 and get the scale degree. So 9 minus 7 is 2. So we have Mixolydian scale with a flat 2. E flat minor 7. That could also be Dorian. A lot of in jazz, a lot of guys will play Dorian over a minor chord, which is just like minor but with a natural 6. Next we have a G half diminished. That's the same as a minor 7 flat 5. It can be written either way. And so for that, I play exactly that, a minor scale with a flat 5. That winds up being the 6th mode of melodic minor. So being the 6th mode of melodic minor, that also means we could go to the 3rd there, B flat, and just play melodic minor. And as a solo device, especially as bass players trying to get away from the root, I tend to make special note of any instances like that. I actually keep a little spreadsheet that I've had forever where I say this chord type, ooh, you can just go to this scale degree and play this other scale, and it's the same notes. But it was a way of training myself to not think of every chord from the root. So if I see a G minor 7 flat 5, I immediately think B flat melodic minor. And that, even if I'm still playing in somewhat of a scalier way, at least I'm not starting on the root. Or if I am, my brain might be thinking from the root, but I'll move to somewhere else from within the scale, so I'm not just jumping from root to root as I solo through the tune. And again, I have more videos on exercises and ways you can help work yourself through that process of getting away from the root and seeing a chord symbol and being able to recognize it from any point from within that chord and scale. So moving on, next we have the C7, again, Mixolydian, A7, Mixolydian flat 9, E flat minor. We've got some repetitions here. And essentially, it's pretty straightforward until we get to the last 8 bars. D major 7 sharp 5. So I see that and I think major 7 sharp 5. The literal interpretation is that 1, 2, 3, 4, sharp 5, 6, 7. I actually, whenever I see a sharp 5, my brain automatically thinks whole tone scale, which is exactly what it sounds like. Whole tones, made up, comprised entirely of whole steps. Now this is a major 7 chord, so when I see a major 7 sharp 5, I really like the sound of playing whole tone with a major 7. May not always work, and maybe you may have to try it in the context of a tune, and if it doesn't sound right over that tune, find out what works. It's all really in the exploration of how you're hearing things. If it doesn't sound good to you, don't play it because you think that's what you're supposed to play. Find what you think sounds good. And that goes for anything. If you don't think it sounds good, but they told you in school this is what you should do to it, I don't buy it. Find out what works for you. And explore. A lot of these scales and a lot of these chords, there's a ton of different scales and different modes you can play over it to get a different sound. You know, any one of these minor 7 chords, you could even play a flat 5 in there for an effect. Say B flat minor 7, or a Dorian, or minor. You could play a line like, winds up sounding kind of bluesy. You put a flat 5 in there, and it just made it sound bluesy. So again, you know, all notes essentially work if you put some thought into how to use them and use them in the context of a phrase. So that said, I have a little band in the box thing set up here at a pretty slow tempo. So let me just go through, and this is how I might practice something like this. I'll just go through and play with some of the other chord tones, work on voice leading my way through the chords, and I'll build my scales as I go. Essentially, I think this is a chord scales. You're looking at the chord and building the appropriate scale from what the chord is telling you, and also keeping in mind the function of any chord. So very slow for this tune. B flat melodic minor. Flat 9, E flat. Third of the G flat. Common tone, flat 7 of the B flat is the flat third of the F minor 7. And again, I maintain that A flat I was playing through the D major 7 sharp 5. It's not literally in that scale, but it plays into that whole tone. Now we're on the G minor 7. Whole tone with the major 7. So that's you know, wasn't a great solo or anything, but straight ahead really isn't my thing. But also, just trying to go through and think with intentionality when you're practicing this stuff. It's not about playing a great solo. It's about getting yourself to think differently and exploring the changes. One tool I use when I practice is to force myself to play specific patterns over the changes, thinking of the appropriate scale. So check this out. I'm going to play every chord. Let me slow it down a little bit so I can hit those 2 chords per bar chords. And I'm going to play a specific pattern. Say just a simple one, but not starting from the root. This is a part of it. Say 2, 3, 4, 5 of every chord. C7. So I'm just taking this idea of 2, 3, 4, 5 and starting to try and get melodic with it. Sharp 5. So you get the idea. I think my loop actually has different number of bars on it, so I got off playing a loop from a different version of Orbits. Either that or I screwed up. But that's what practice is for. You start thinking so hard about one thing, and you just work your way through it. Make mistakes, don't worry about it. And as you get better at that, this is kind of some strange changes to do some of these exercises over, but that just makes it more difficult, which means you're working that much harder. I would also start to increasingly get more difficult with the patterns that you try and play, instead of 1 2 3 4 or 2 3 4 5. Do 7 3 4 6. That'll really challenge your brain. And you can always start with an easier tune. Start with Autumn Leaves. Play 5 3 4 6 or 7 5 3 4, whatever you want. Just come up with an arbitrary set of numbers, and then try and play that pattern over every chord. And that'll really start to get you seeing changes, not from the root, but from different places within the chord. And I also encourage you to write out the chords on some manuscript paper, and write out what notes, build your little chord scales and tell yourself what notes are available for each chord, and just explore it and play through it. So hopefully some of you found that useful. Feel free to hit me up with any questions you have regarding that. We kind of covered a lot of ground, and then I played fairly poor examples. But I think the concepts are there, and the concepts are valid. It's a good way to work through changes and to think about what notes are really available to you when playing through a set of changes. And also watch the other videos on modes, because they really focus in on one mode at a time and how you can use that mode over a certain chord type. And since that had already been covered again, I figured I'd just kind of cover any chord type and how to build a scale from that. Hope that's helpful. Thank you.